I quite like this car. And that's a problem, because I thought I was into saloons, hot hatches, estates. But an SUV, and a small SUV at that? Oh dear. I'll even admit I actually prefer it over the A-Class. And believe you me, I'm just as confused as you are. There's gotta be something wrong with this GLA though, right? Let's find out. My name's Tom, and you're watching Paragon Cars. Let's go. Before we start, please like, subscribe and hit the bell if you'd like us to keep bringing you this content. Also, don't forget to follow our socials for updates on our stock. Links in the description below. Okay, so SUVs are and have been all the rage for a while now, but this small category is the latest of the bunch. It's a way of getting that commanding driving position without driving something the size of Jupiter. And annoyingly, manufacturers are actually getting pretty damn good at making a car that really can do everything. Let's talk about that car though. This is a GLA200, and believe it or not, it's actually skinnier than the A-Class, as in less width, that is. It's still heavier though, and it still has that dinky 1.3 litre engine. That does seem small, doesn't it? But let's see if it can surprise us on the 30 to 70 sprint. So unsurprisingly, it's a little slower than the equivalent A-Class due to a bit more weight and a bit more drag. However, 7.32 seconds is still a very decent time for 163 horsepower and 250 newton meters. In fact, it even beat 184 horsepower BMW 4 Series. But forget that for a second, I want you to look a little lower down on the list at the CLA180. That's a car with an identical engine, and it was well over a second slower. I'll let you decide whether that's enough to upgrade to the 200 though, but for me, it certainly would be. In fact, my only gripe with this engine is it could certainly be smoother. It's almost as gruff as a 3-cylinder when you rev it out. Anyway, inside, this is where I was pleasantly surprised. Whilst there's a lot of similarity between this and the A-Class, there are some pretty big differences. The dash design has changed, adding even more soft squidgy stuff, and the door cards have much more room for 2-litre bottles. Even the AMG seats are different. There's no integrated headrest like the A-Class, but you still get all the nice stitching in Alcantara. The centre console is the same however, but that never needed to change anyway. You've got good cup holders, a wireless charger and plenty of USB-C ports. The rear is near perfect, good legroom with space under the seat and plenty of headroom for people even over 6 feet. The material quality is the same as the front and the windows go all the way down. The only negative is no armrest, which is a shame as it really does need one. The boot is great though, it's a nice square shape with plenty of options to secure your stuff. There's tie-down points, elastic bands, nets, and even some extra storage under the boot floor. Want a bit more depth though? No worries, just pull out the floor and lower it down to create even more room. For longer stuff though, you will need to fold the seats down. Thankfully, the load floor is flat, and with nearly 1,500 litres of space, there really isn't much that you wouldn't be able to fit back here. Okay, time to get on the road and see this mini SUV in action. There seem to be quite a few small SUVs about at the minute. You've got the Q3, the BMW X1, and this, the GLA. And all of them seem to be pretty popular. And I know car enthusiasts, they go, well, why wouldn't you just buy a hatchback? It's basically the same thing. Well, there are some key differences. The first being, obviously you sit higher up. But the second thing is, and this is something you might not think about, when you're just pootling around town, like you would, you know, imagine you're doing the school run or something like that, that extra suspension travel just allows you to get about actually quite a lot quicker than you would in a hatchback. Around London especially, you have to slow down to like 5 miles an hour when you're going over speed bumps, otherwise you bottom out, especially in an A-Class. Whereas this, even though it's on the lowered comfort suspension, because it's an AMG line car, you can just maintain that 15-20 mile an hour speed and go straight over them. Anyway, in terms of steering. It's very light, very similar to an A-Class, believe it or not. You can do it with your pinky. It's actually very similar to the S-Class we reviewed a while ago. And that's what you want it to be like. You just want it to be easy to drive. All the control weights are pretty good, accelerator feels nice, brake pedal is very predictable. These are the upgraded sports brakes, and they just have a really nice bite point to them. Then in terms of price, over an A-Class, for the same specification, you're paying about $4,500 more for this. I think you've got more room in the back, and just generally a bit more height in the interior. Plus, if you are driving around town, this is definitely worth the extra money. It's easier, you can see more, especially when you're coming out of junctions, and it's just generally a better car. The only thing I'm worried about is, can a 1.3 litre engine really carry this car on the motorway? One thing you don't want it to be doing is chopping and changing through gears, because it doesn't really make it feel like a premium car then. Parking wise, it needs to be easy as well. Thankfully, because it's not actually that bigger of a car, it is pretty easy. You use the gear selector stalk on the steering column. It's a very nifty feature of these Mercedes. And if you're good at parking, you can easily get in a space in one go. Sadly, I'm not. Even with all the parking aids, you've got all-round parking sensors, a reverse camera, and then if I swipe up, I've actually got a wide-angle reverse camera. Because, as you know, you're going to park on the drive forwards. I know you're not supposed to do that, but literally everyone does that because it's easier. And it allows you to see round cars' bumpers, so the camera sees where you can't see effectively, and it just gives you a bit more reassurance when you're reversing out of your space. Right, let's see how it handles coming out of a junction. Give it half throttle. Yeah. Do you know what? While this engine isn't super smooth, it does perform well. There's a good amount of low-down grunt, and that dual-clutch gearbox kind of blends the gears together pretty well. Right, let's reset our trip and see what MPG we can get on the motorway. They claim you get 42 out of this, although small engine, heavy car, we'll see. I don't think it's going to get it, but prove me wrong, Mercedes. Right, let's go into sports mode and have a little taste of how this GLA handles a roundabout. Of course, sports mode sharpens up the steering, sharpens up the throttle response, changes down a couple of gears as well. And in fact, if I go into the individual setting, it turns the ESC into sports. So let's see how it handles. Alright, interesting. So there's no wheel spin. I don't think there's enough power or torque to do that. But it has a pretty nice turn in actually. It doesn't roll at all, really. Engine has a really nice response. And it's not fast, but it's perfectly adequate. You actually get quite a nice blow-off sound from the turbo as well. Don't know if you can hear it. I slow down a bit and then give it a little bit of gas. Actually sounds quite good. Anyway, back into eco. Let's see what kind of economy we can get out of this engine. Back on your typical busy British motorway then. And the first thing I notice is the lack of road noise. There is a little bit of wind noise just coming from the wing mirror, and I was going 70 miles an hour just back there, and you could just about hear a little bit of wind noise coming from there, but there is a lot less road noise than there was in the A-Class. Of course, because you're just physically further away from the road and you've just got more tyre, there's going to be a little less road noise. Then in terms of comfort, these are the AMG line seats, so they've got stiffer bolsters on the side, so they keep you in place a bit better. And then there's Alcantara and leather, so the Alcantara grips your bum, keeps you in your place, but it's very comfortable at the same time. There's plenty of adjustment in the seat. You can adjust the pitch of the base, you've got a little extendable bit for your thighs, so you get more thigh support. Then of course you can recline them. The only thing I'm missing is the lumbar support. I don't know if it has it or not, but to be honest, you don't really need it. I think if you had a bad back, maybe, but the seats are very well judged. You know, there's a little bit of lumbar support built in. But one of the best things is the fact I can actually get low enough so I can rest my elbows on the armrests. Quite a lot of cars, for some reason, don't do that very well. But this driving position is bang on. I got that perfect distance from the steering wheel, my legs are nice and comfortable. Yeah, nothing to complain about there. Then in terms of visibility, it's pretty good. The A-pillars could be a little bit thinner, but because they've sort of shaped them like a triangle, you can see round them in most cases. B-pillars are very good though, they're nice and thin, so you can see around them pretty easily. And then of course you've got that curved bit of glass on the wing mirror, so you can see in your blind spot anyway. It's all those little things that just make a car easier to drive. Okay, moving on to interior quality. This is where Mercedes has been a bit weird of late. I don't know if something happened with emissions or they got fined or something, but there are places in this cabin where they have definitely skimped out a bit. And the weird thing is, you've got really nice materials on the door cards, and pretty much everywhere you touch, you know, you've got this carbon fibre effect trim. Everything looks very nice. Even on the dash, you've got those really soft, squidgy materials. But when you prod around a bit, you do find plastics that aren't very nice. One of them is this one. It's very, very scratchy. And I wouldn't mind if they used plastic that wasn't quite as good a quality as the leather surrounding it, but you can literally see the difference in quality between the armrest and this little bit of plastic here. Other than that though, it is pretty good. Everything feels solid, which is the most important thing in my mind. You don't want any interior rattles. Anyway, moving on. If I could only get 3 options for this car, what would I choose? First thing is going to be these screens. Whilst the standard screens are perfectly fine, there is absolutely nothing wrong with them, there's a good resolution and the frame rate is really good. These do just complete the cabin a little bit more. You don't need to get both the same size screens. The smaller one for the dials is totally fine, it does everything you need it to do. But having a slightly wider sat-nav screen does look nice, plus you just have a bit more real estate to work with, especially if you plug your phone in for music. Right. The second spec that I would be getting is going to be a panoramic roof. Whilst this car is actually surprisingly bright in the back, even with tinted windows, it would be nice to have a pan roof. You feel like you need one in an SUV, and it really does allow quite a lot more light into the cabin, and your kids just aren't going to feel sick. Then the last thing is going to be a reverse camera. That is definitely needed on this car. The view out the back is fine, parking sensors are good and accurate, but you do need that reassurance, because sometimes parking sensors can throw a wally and they won't see a bollard or something, and if you hit that, you know, that's a lot of money to get that repaired, so it's definitely something worth having. Plus, that 180-degree view feature makes the camera worth it alone. Reversing off your driveway is hard under normal circumstances, but having that extra wide-angle view really does help. Well, we finally made it through that traffic. But anyway, how does the car drive on the motorway? Does it feel like a proper Mercedes, and is there enough torque so that you're not switching through gears too much? Well, if I give it a little bit of throttle and change lanes, you can see it downshifts a couple of gears, but it's very smooth about it. You know, it's not revving over 3,000 and doesn't sound like a tin of wasps under the bonnet. So yeah, for a little engine, it's got cracking performance. And in terms of MPG, even though we've been stuck in traffic, it has exceeded expectations. We're doing over 40 miles per gallon at the minute, and we were only sitting at like 20-30 miles an hour stop-start traffic back there. Anyway, let's watch that figure drop and get onto some B roads. Let's see how a 1.3 litre GLA handles. Bit of understeer. Give it a bit of brakes. It doesn't really rotate much. Let's try and... No. It's designed with safety in mind, which is kind of what I expected. And whilst it is kind of a manual mode, it does upshift for you. This dual clutch gearbox responds really nicely. Pull a paddle, shift. Pull a paddle, shift. Yeah, it's good. And on the down changes, it's very quick. Look at that. Paddle, shift. It's almost instant. Again, brakes are good. Plenty of feel through them. You know the car's going to stop. Don't think we need to do a sound test. Yeah, it's not great. Not a great noise. form as well, this engine. It's nice. Try from third gear, use the torque. Yeah, that's good. It's got adequate acceleration, that's what I'll say. It's not fast, but it's good enough. I just really like the gearbox. The pedals feel nice. That front end grip if I drive it properly. It's good. Do the speed limit round a roundabout. Now you might be thinking, why am I driving the car like an idiot? Well, whilst it's not supposed to be fun, or it doesn't need to be fun, it does need to be predictable and safe, and this car is exactly that. You could get into a bit of trouble in this thing and the car would just sort you out. Okay, what's it like, Dan? Some tighter stuff. Again, still plenty of grip from the front wheels. This engine doesn't really like to be revved out, does it? It's happy to give you all the torque, but dies at about 5,500. Even with the ESC off, it's still kicking in. You can feel it grabbing the brakes. Still going to move on though. Ooh, a little bit of movement there. Yeah, do you know what? It's pretty good. It's not dynamic, but it does the job. Okay, around a tight corner then. Plant your foot. Yeah, it just goes round. Good to know if you're in a hurry, this car will get you there in a timely manner. The AMG line seats are definitely worth it as well. They really do hold you in place nicely. So yeah, on a B road, it's predictable, it's safe. Would I say it's fun? It's enjoyable. It's not super playful though. I still like it. It's just fundamentally better than an A-Class. More substantial, more room, and well, more car. Unless you're going for an A35 or above, then just go with this. It's 100% worth the extra money. And to add a little perspective, this is closer to a Mercedes GLC than it is a Mercedes A-Class. And that car is supposed to be in a totally different category. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, give it a like, and why not subscribe? As not only can you see more content like this, you can also see everything we have for sale. My name's Tom, and you've been watching Paragon Cars. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.